Hi, I'm Grant. This is Dad Crafted, and this is a man cave basement bar marquee sign. All right, let's go. So a buddy of mine reached out and he asked for a bar sign for his basement, and he specifically wanted it to say "Last Call Basement Bar." This is what I came up with. Hindsight being 2020, I probably would have punted a long time ago and changed course and done something completely different, because this is much more complicated and difficult than I thought it was going to be when I started. I drew inspiration on this sign from the great Jimmy Diresta. He has done Bulleit Bourbon signs in the past like this. If you're a Patreon of his, you can see his voiceover video where he talks about how he makes these. Printed off some letters on a printer. They were still too small, so I just kind of upscaled them by hand. All of these letters are cut out on the bandsaw, 1/2-inch plywood. Flush. Eventually I had to figure out where all the holes for the lights were going to go, and that was an entire process in and of itself. Tried to do it in places where it looked even. Some spots didn't end up quite how I wanted just because I didn't make the letters quite right, but still looks pretty good, right? Once I evenly spaced out all the holes, I drilled them with a Forstner bit on the drill press so that they were pretty clean. Not too much sanding. That was probably the best part of this project, let's be honest. Once the letters were cut, holes were drilled, then it was time to do this flashing, and this was the worst part. Not only cutting it down to the right size and making all these strips that form around the letters, but actually forming them. I just formed by hand and used my speed square to just as a straight edge to wrap around, but there's a lot of trial and error of trying to get them to fit perfect, and if you don't have them just right, then there's going to be big gaps and it's going to look terrible. There are still some gaps, or there were. I did the best I could, but basically when I got done, I filled it all in with glue later in the back. But the main problem was trying to use the right amount of glue and the right amount of brad nails, and you have to have your air compressor set to the right amount or else it's totally going to fail. And my air compressor is somewhat broken, so I had issues of keeping it right at basically like between 60 and 70. I'd have to turn my air compressor off, flip it back on after I nailed a few, but if you have it too high, the nails just go right through the flashing and it doesn't stick at all. I had several different iterations of trying to get these done, and it took several trips to the shop and tested my sanity greatly, but eventually I finally made it through. And like I said, when I got all these done, I went back with a hot glue gun on the back of the letters. I put hot glue in all of the seams so that you wouldn't have any light peeking through from the back, the front, whatever. Interesting trying to get the lights apart easily. I kind of just made a little jig where I drilled the hole and then bandsaw it out or jigsawed out a section just so I had a little spot to put the sockets so that I could set them in there, use a screwdriver or my Leatherman tool to pop the thing out, and then move on to the next one. Kind of tedious work. A lot of this was tedious. It was doing a bunch of the same step over and over and over again. I'm probably never going to do this again. I'm sure the next one I make would be awesome because now I know what I'm doing, but if anybody wants one of these, it's going to cost you a small fortune. The lights themselves, actually, you can take apart with a screwdriver. The sockets actually have teeth in the back. So if you take all the sockets off of the cord is basically just like an extension cord that you would have in your house. But you can take them off, you can rearrange, and then you can put the sockets anywhere you want to, and then you hammer the caps back in the back, and the teeth poke through the cord, and then you don't have tons a foot of excess wire in between each. So this is 2 strands of lights, but I took all the sockets off both, and I'm actually only using one of the cords, and I've still got a ton left over, plenty for my friend to plug in to his wall, probably even way too much. The back's all framed up with 1x4s. I just screwed everything in. I didn't wood glue because I wasn't totally sure about the placement of the letters and if anything should ever go wrong. I still kind of wanted it easy to take apart just in case. If something fails here, he's a friend of mine. I'll be able to fix it, make it better, whatever. Box below, same concept except this isn't flashing. I wanted a more sturdy option, so these are 1x4s in the bottom. Just made a rectangular box. The basement bar letters are scroll sawed. Just try to do a quick job in cursive, give it a little bit of different look than the block letters for the marquee sign. And there's a strip that sits behind and hopefully rests low enough, but you might be able to see it from the camera there. But everything's just super glued on down there. Hopefully it's all gonna stay together. It is just a sign. It's not like kids are playing with it. So as long as it hangs on the wall and nobody headbutts it, everything should stay intact just fine. Knowing my friend. And then there's a couple eye hooks that are screwed in the back to hang it. Pretty simple. Again, I drew a lot of inspiration on this from Jimmy Diresta's Bulleit Bourbon videos, so if you haven't checked those out, I'm going to have a link in the description, but it's a really cool video and he did a much better job than I did on this. But also, as Jimmy says, you go to school on the first one, so the next one of these will probably be for me and might say dad or something. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Lights out. Are you kidding me? What the kind of a glue gun is this? Ah! There we go. Hi, I'm Grant. This is Dad Crafted, and this. This works so much better in rehearsal. Kill me. I did it and I said kill me in the middle.